Homeowners, if you've got roof issues and you need to deal with a roofer, then these are the questions a roofer might ask you that you should never answer. Maybe you should answer some of them, but the answer should be no. Okay, so one question is, I'm working at your neighbor's house and I wanted to find out if you'd like me to inspect your roof while I'm in the neighborhood. Well, the best response to that would be, what's the name of the neighbor at whose house you say you're working? Because oftentimes a roofer that's going door to door is just gonna go through a neighborhood telling people that he's working in a neighborhood to give the homeowners some sort of warm fuzzy that, oh, my neighbor hired this guy, he must be good, and he may not even be working in the neighborhood, or he might be working in the neighborhood a mile away. So if you just take the roofer's word for it that he's working at your neighbor's house, even if he is, that doesn't tell you anything. Because sure, your neighbor might have hired him to do his roof, but what if your neighbor's an idiot? What if your neighbor, even though he's a really good guy, just made a really bad decision? What if your neighbor, now having worked with that roofer, would never refer that roofer to even his worst enemy because he's had such a bad experience? Just because a roofer is working in your neighborhood doesn't mean he's qualified to do your roof or even inspect your roof. And I've said over and over in other videos that letting somebody on your roof who just shows up at your house uninvited, knocks on your door, and asks if he can inspect your roof is a gamble. You might get a good roofer that way, but you might not get a good roofer that way. My point is, you don't know what you're gonna get. The best thing is always going to be to ask your friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, churchgoers, if they've used a roofer, what was their experience, and can you get the contact information? That's the best way to find a roofer. Another question that a roofer might ask you that you don't want to answer, at least in the affirmative, is, can I see your insurance paperwork? Now, there are some qualifications that I want to make to that. If the roofer is asking to see your insurance paperwork before he creates a quote to do your roof, that's a red flag. If the roofer is asking to see your insurance paperwork before he even gets on the roof, that's like 12 red flags. If you call a roofer and on the phone with you, they ask you to send over your insurance paperwork, that's not red flags. What would that be? Just like a minefield that you're about to go through? If the roofer is asking for your insurance paperwork before he's ever even gotten on the roof, before he has created his own scope of work with associated quote, then the reason that he's asking you for that paperwork is so that he doesn't have to go through the process of measuring the roof, which costs money, creating an estimate, which takes time, which also costs money. So if you give him your insurance paperwork, all you're doing is eliminating the need for the roofer to actually do the work that he's supposed to do. And that is creating a scope of work and an estimate to replace or repair your roof. Because that roofer just simply wants to be able to tell you that he will do the work for whatever the insurance claim amount is. So he wants to get the insurance claim so that he can see what the amount of money is in the claim, so that he can then write on his contract, he'll do it for XYZ dollars, whatever the amount is that's written on the insurance claim. Now, you might be tempted to think, well, if the roofer wants to do the work for the amount that's in the claim, what's wrong with that? Here's a couple things that you need to consider. Number one, if he says that he's going to do the work for the amount that's in the insurance claim, what work is it that he's going to do if he hasn't given you a scope of work and a quote associated with that work? So there may be multiple accessories that your insurance company has written into the claim that they want to see get replaced, but when the roofer tells you he will do the work for the amount of the claim, like I said, what work is he going to do? He might not actually replace or intend to replace all the different accessories that are in the claim amount. Because if he thinks that the claim amount is too low, more than likely he's going to omit the replacement of certain things or certain work to try to make up that profit that he's losing if he were to do everything for the amount that the insurance payout is. The other very important thing to remember is that your insurance claim might have the repairs or replacements of things besides the roof. You might have siding, you might have window screens, you might have windows, you might have painting. There could be a number of things in your insurance claim that aren't related to the roof. And this actually happened here in Colorado Springs back in 2018. This was the last that I heard of this happening anyway. I'm sure it's happened before or happened since. But huge hailstorm comes through, entire house is damaged. Insurance company gives the homeowner a claim. I'm gonna just say arbitrarily, it's for $20,000, but only $10,000 of that is for the roof. Roofer comes along and says, oh, we'll do it for the claim amount. Homeowner, not having gone through insurance claim processes very often, not knowing what all of those bizarre Greek line items in the claim amount actually mean, says, oh, okay, and hands the check over to the roofer who does the roof, collects the entire claim amount, and is gone. Now the homeowner doesn't have any money left to do all the other repairs that were in the insurance claim. Now you might think, how could a homeowner be that stupid? I'm not saying that homeowners are stupid. I'm saying that homeowners aren't used to going through the insurance claim process and oftentimes don't understand what their claim document is telling them. So it's not really that hard for a homeowner to get bamboozled by somebody who's unethical, but who understands how much is in the claim and what the money in the claim is actually for. Another question that a roofer might ask you that you definitely don't want to answer is, if I could, fill in the blank, could I get you to sign the contract today? This is actually a sales technique called the if I could, would you close? And it's designed to make you feel like there's a chance that you might not get the deal that the salesman is proposing to you. It's designed to kind of take away from you what he's trying to sell you. Because anytime something gets taken away from us, we automatically want that. The one thing that you should know about that particular question is that if a salesman asks you that question, it doesn't matter if it's a roofer or any other salesman in any other industry. If a salesman asks you that question, he already knows or she already knows that he can do the deal that he's proposing to you. So it's not, if I could, would you? It's, I know I can do this. I want to get a commitment from you. So the next question that a roofer might ask you that you definitely don't want to answer is related to the previous one, and that is, if my manager agrees to this, could I count on you to sign the contract today? So again, the goal of this question and the previous one is just simply a psychological trick that's designed to instill anxiety in you that you might not get the deal that he's proposing. And what it does is it brings in that authority of the manager. You know, I'm just the lowly salesman. I don't really have the authority to do this. Let me see if my manager can approve this. And so now you're filled with all of this angst, right? You've probably experienced this at the car dealership, but now you're filled with all this angst. Oh gosh, I hope the manager can approve this. You know, this salesman, he's trying to do this deal for me. He's trying to help me out. But there's this big, bad, mean old manager that stands in the way, maybe. Oh gosh, I sure hope this goes through. The end goal of this question and the previous one is really just to find out if you're ready to sign on the dotted line, and if not, what are your objections so that he can then overcome the objections and get you to sign on the dotted line. Because remember, the whole goal of a salesman is to close the deal right now. because he doesn't want to leave without a signed contract. So the whole goal of all these two questions is to get you to sign right now. You don't have to sign right now. There is no urgency. Even if there is a major problem with your roof, there is no need for you to sign on the dotted line with a roofing contractor right now. You've got to do your research, do your due diligence, be a smart and educated consumer and homeowner. This is your house. You have to take care of it. So the tactic is he might actually call the manager right there with you, put him on speakerphone, right, and talk through, or maybe he won't put him on speakerphone, but on a cell phone, you're gonna be able to hear that other end of the conversation. So if he does call the manager, he might go through his gyrations, tell the whole story, and then maybe you can hear the manager saying, well, I don't know if we can do this. This is really tough. You're putting me in a tough spot, blah, 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 blah. Until finally the manager says, well, I guess we can do this. And now you go, oh, but now remember, you've already committed yourself because he asked you, if my manager agrees to this, will you sign the contract right now? The only reason he's calling the manager is because you said you would. But let's say he says that he has to go outside to call the manager. My guess is he's not calling a manager. It's just like when that used car salesman says he's got to go ask the manager, and he's probably just going back into the break room and getting a Coke and talking about, the great sale he's about to make to all the other salesmen. So I'm gonna plead with you, don't give in to either of those questions. They're just sales tactics. Both of them are called the takeaway close. Don't give in to either of those questions. All right, the next question that a roofer might ask you that you definitely should not answer is, why don't we go ahead and call your insurance company and file a claim right now? So he wants you to do that with him right there. So that way he can kind of coach you, guide you with what to say. But the purpose of that is to make you feel obligated to use that roofer, right? Because he's helped you through the process. You don't need help through the process. You call the claims department and you tell them what's going on. They're gonna ask you some questions. If you do need help with that process, you know who the best person is to help you file a claim? Your insurance agent. That's why it's so important to have a local insurance agent instead of one of the 1-800 companies. So your agent is gonna be much, much better help for you to file an insurance claim, and your agent might even have a more of an interest in making sure that the process goes well for you rather than your roofer. Remember, there's no urgency to file a claim unless you have just severe damage to your house. Hurricane, tornado, if hail has actually penetrated through your roof or busted out windows or something like that. But otherwise, there's just no urgency to file a claim. You don't have to file a claim right now, especially with a roofer sitting right there listening to the whole process. This is just a high pressure tactic designed to make you feel obligated to use that roofer. And if you have severe damage on your house, you've probably filed the insurance claim already. It's not something that you should do with any sense of urgency. You want to make sure you do your research. You want to understand what your policy coverage is. You want to know what your deductible is. You don't need to file a claim with any sense of urgency. You don't need to file a claim right now, like I say, unless you have severe damage, and you definitely don't need to do it with the roofer right there. Okay, so another question that a roofer might ask you that you definitely don't want to answer is, can I get you to sign this document? So oftentimes a roofer will ask you that. If he comes to your door and asks you if he can inspect the roof, and you say, well, yeah, sure, you can inspect the roof. Sometimes he'll ask you to sign this document, and either through implicit comments or explicit comments might lead you to believe that this form is giving the roofer permission to get on the roof. And sometimes people think that, like I say, this is an authorization form. Sometimes they think it's a waive of liability form. But the whole point is the homeowner thinks that the purpose of the document is to allow the roofer to inspect the roof. But what the document actually is It can be called a contingency form. There are other names for it also. But what the document is doing is it's designed to make you feel obligated. Now, we had actually somebody that goes to our church had this happen to her. And the document has language in it that basically says, if I inspect your roof, if there's damage, and if you file an insurance claim, then we are the roofer that you're going to use to do the work. Even if you've signed one of those documents, you are under no obligation, zero obligation to use that roofer to do the work. It's not a contract and it doesn't hold up in court. But the reason that they want you to sign it is so that you do feel obligated. Hey, you watched all the way to the end of the video. I really appreciate that. I think you're gonna like this video right here, so give that one a click. Until our next Walk in the Park video, I'm Tracy Bookman, owner of Homestead Roofing.